Hi, I'm Chloe, compulsive overeater, anorexic, bulimic. I'm quite nervous about, it's the first time I've been recorded, and this is quite early for me for a Saturday, and I've recently given up coffee, and I'm not a sleeper in general. I get quite bad insomnia, so this is not necessarily going to be the most coherent recording, but if it can be helpful to someone somewhere along the line, then that's worth it. But yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I um I said yes because I just always say yes when someone asks me to give a share, even when it's inconvenient, because it's always worth it to me. And yeah, I do find that this program is always worth the inconvenience, and I can resent it a lot before showing up. For other people or for myself, I can think like, oh, it's not fair. I don't want to, give this time that I could be giving to me, or just doing nothing, or, doing anything other than connecting with others. Um, that is like the soundtrack in my head. And then as soon as I found that connection with other people, I feel better. It's just like I don't know why I can't seem to learn that lesson. I have to like do the action to be reminded of it each and every time. But thankfully I have a program, and I have fellows, and I have a sponsor that keep me accountable and keep me showing up. Otherwise I would very easily forget that. Um, and I am being reminded a lot recently of just how much I need this program, and how just how young I am in it actually. I this next month, God willing, will be my 9 years of abstinence. I'll have been in the program for nearly 10 years. And I think I think I always thought like by the time I'm 10 years in, I will be, like I'll just be sailing through life. It will be easy. I'll be an old timer. I probably won't really need the program that much anymore. Like everything will fall into place and life will just be a breeze. Um, and yeah, I just kind of thought I would be levitating at this point. And I have had like a real crash back down to earth in the past year or so. Just finding like my the illness, the voice has been really loud again, and I don't really know why. Like I'm still absent, I'm still working my program. Well, I do know why. Like I've just had some knocks in life. Like life has got bigger, it's got more stressful, stuff has gone on in my relationship, just in life in general. I've had some changes in my body, which despite absent, which has completely confounded me, because I've been like, but I've been following the rules. I've been like, doing the formula, and yet my body's not doing what I want it to. I can't control everything. As I've said, I don't sleep, and I've been having a lot of stress issues, and I've had to seek outside help for that. And I was just a bit like, what is going on? Like I thought I could cash in my 9 year chip and get all these rewards. Um, and yeah, I've been feeling a lot of resentment, but actually, I am grateful for the humility that it's given me, because I think I need this constant reminder that I just have this illness, and like that this program is worth working, because yeah, without it, I kind of am fall prey to insanity and misery quite easily. And I can still go through periods, as I have been, of like real difficulty. And for the newcomer, I just want to make it clear that like that is not what life is all about on the other side of recovery. But actually, like life is still, it keeps lifing, and stuff keeps coming up, and it's difficult. And I don't have this crutch to lean on as I used to hide away from it. I just have to keep showing up and doing it. Um, and there have been periods of like incredible peace and serenity and light. And my life is, if I really think about it, and it's so helpful to me actually to, whenever I hear from or see a newcomer, just because I can think like, wow, actually, my life is not at all where it was 10 years ago. I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. I have a relationship, I can hold down a job, like my food is stable. I'm not in a state of like abject depression all the time. I always in my defects. I understand that my defects are not my character, and that they're just something that I can work on and try and hand over. Um, and yeah, I'm just able to sustain a more healthy and loving relationship with myself, which makes the world feel more livable. Um, but yeah, it's been tough recently, and humility has been a big word for me. And I'm going through my steps again. I'm just finished my step one, with my sponsor. Um, that's 5. Okay,
Five
thank you.
minutes.
Thank you. All right, so I'll get into a bit about what it was like before. But yeah, I basically grew up just feeling very isolated. I think the big mantra for my illness is I'm not enough and happiness is over there, which I've heard other people share. And yeah, I think I just grew up in a household where there was addiction on both sides, but no one had it really come out in the way that it did in me. It was just a lot of, there was codependency, there was food stuff, there was alcohol stuff, there was like depression, anxiety, and there was a lot of love, but no one knew how to express it, and no one had any boundaries or knew how to look after themselves, and there was just a lot of difficult, painful feelings and um, disconnection and pain. And I was a very sensitive child and just didn't feel like I had anywhere to turn. And at school, I was bullied. I was slightly chubby, and I think I was just a bit weird. I think I was just quite like sensitive and weird. And I looked at other people to make me feel better and to take care of me. And, kids can smell weakness a mile away, and they didn't like it. And um, yeah, so I really felt like I had nowhere to turn, but I couldn't take it at home because there was already so much painful feeling going on there. So at some point, I must have just turned to food as my comfort and just went inward. And that stayed my coping method for many years was just kind of comfort eating until I was about 11 or 12 and I kind of hit pre-puberty or puberty and it sort of tipped over into more intense binge eating. I guess the feelings got bigger and my sense of disconnection, isolation in my body got more intense. And I needed a more intense way of coping with that. So yeah, the eating intensified and, we got to go on a Wednesday afternoon after school with some pocket money to buy whatever we wanted in town. Of course, I wanted to buy like sweets and things like that. And I would start progressively stealing more money from my mum each week in order to get more. Um, and it just became such a fixation for me. But at the same time, I felt so disgusted with myself and isolated and just had that constant mantra going around in my head of like, I'm not enough. And if only I had this and things were different, um, then I could be happy. And at that point, the obvious thing to point to was my body was the wrong shape. I was overweight and people reminded me of that a lot. And I just thought, well, if I could change this, then I'd be happy and everything would be better. Or at least, I actually don't know if I did think that. I think I thought I could mask as someone who was happy and normal. I didn't think I would ever actually be that person. I felt so like monstrous on the inside and so different to everyone else. So the best I could do was just try and cover up that difference. So I had this genius idea that I would just stop eating and that would solve everything because that was my problem, right? That was what had been causing all this separation in the first place. Um, so I did it and I was very good at it. And I remember I think I started doing it a bit when I was 12, dabbling, but when I was 13, I just kind of picked a day and I was like, from tomorrow, I'm just going to stop eating. Um, yeah, and so that went on for a few years and I became something of a problem child. Like I was the person in my family in whom the addiction like really showed itself with my eating disorder, and I was very angry and it was very loud. Um, yeah, but it was just my outlet for all these feelings that I didn't know where to put. And eventually, as I've learned many times, every period of restriction is followed by like an equal and opposite binge. And my parents were very concerned about how underweight I was and kept threatening to send me away to, some kind of treatment. And unless I started eating, and then I kind of sort of tipped into binging again and then became very overweight. And then it just sort of went back and forth for years, like went into uni, went into extreme restriction again, exercise bulimia, and lost loads of weight again. And then right before I came into recovery, I just tipped back into the binging again. I had a few years of being underweight and severely restricting my food, and I was just exhausted and depressed. And I don't think I would have asked for help if I had managed to sustain that. I think my ego would have been like, oh, but we're winning, even though we're miserable and life's awful, and I don't have a second of respite from my head. I'm still thin, therefore I'm okay. Like, that at least I'm safe. And I'm reckoning a lot with like I think the trauma of being bullied recently and like how much I'm constantly trying to run away from this feeling of pain, um, or this kind of specter of critical voice that actually isn't really, thank you, that's fine. That isn't even with me anymore, apart from in my own head, you know, like I think I'm constantly terrified of that feeling of rejection and humiliation again, and it keeps me in a constant state of terror, which has been hard recently because yeah, I went into a 12-step program via a treatment center, and I kind of just had a complete breakdown and met my sponsor after a few months like trying and failing and not getting abstinent. I had to go into treatment and come out again. I was very, very depressed and suicidal. Um, but yeah, I met my sponsor um just yeah, about 9 years ago. Because that's, oh no, just under 9 years ago. Yeah. And started working with her and have been abstinent ever since. But yeah, I didn't want to do this program at all, but I think I was so broken that I just needed another way out at that point. And I kind of knew there was a part of me that luckily enough was luckily was desperate enough to yeah, just know that this was the only option for me. I'd exhausted every other resource. I tried like every diet, I'd just done everything my way for years, and it hadn't worked for me. I'd ended up completely broken, practically on the floor multiple times. But yeah, then I met this person who was so kind to me and so understanding, and all the people that I met in the rooms just like got where I was coming from. And it wasn't a pink cloud recovery at all for the first, several months. I just cried hysterically. And then when I got abstinent, I cried more because I just felt like all these feelings were coming up that I'd stuffed down for years. But then eventually it did get easier, and life just got more settled and calm and more open. And I felt more at peace with work, and with connection with others, and like learning how to put myself first slowly. Um, and yeah, I reached a really nice, happy medium for many years where my recovery was stable and I was just kind of getting along with life. Um, and then I don't know what happened. I mean, life just got bigger, thankfully, thanks to this program. And I continue to stay with it, like through like a lot of hardships in life. My dad died a few years ago, and that was very painful. And I got very depressed, and yet I still had the program to hold on to. And then actually, it's just the more kind of trivial things in life that have made me have kind of shaken my connection recently. Um, Once it kind of gets hold of you, it's hard to get out. My sponsor always says, like, it's fine, it's easy to stay out of a trap if you're out of the trap. But once you fall into the trap, like, it's hard to get out again. And I think there was like the thin end of the wedge in the past few years where as life got bigger, the kind of thought that I could do little things like count my steps, like other people did. Other people track their steps on their phone, like everyone talks about it all the time. Or I could look at my calories, or I could do all this stuff that other people seem to do. Um, and I had always been off limits for me. And yet recently I was like, well, I can have a go at that. And I got into a relationship for the first time ever 3 years ago. I'm still in it, and it's a very loving relationship, but it's hard to be in constant relationship with someone else. Like, it holds up a mirror to you. And for me, it's like it's showing me all my flaws all the time and all the things that I used to want to hide from other people because I thought there was something wrong with me and I was ashamed. And I even just recently we moved in together, and now I'm like, well, now I really can't hide. Like, I can't go home for a couple of days a week and just like be the monster that I feel like I am. And it's not even like doing anything other than being human, but I just feel like I'm not allowed to be human. I have to be perfect in order to be enough because yeah, like I still feel like I'm masking this inner darkness and this inner differentness um that other people don't have, and yet I have to constantly hide and fight to cover it up. But yes, things like that have just kind of invite I have just created a bit of space that I've rather than filling it with God, I have allowed the voice to get louder and remained abstinent, but just been falling prey to um, the belief that if my body was different, or if just this one thing were different in my life, then everything would be better. And, the disease can fixate on any particular thing. For me at the moment, it's my body because that's what's gone through some changes, but it can be anything. For years, it was like, oh, if I had a relationship, my life would be easier. If I had this job, my life would be different. And now it's like, oh, if I was just the weight that I was 2 years ago, then I would be happy. But it's just like, it's all just a lie. And thank you. I'll wrap up. What's actually going to make my life easier is leaning back into my program when times get tough, as I have done many times in the past nearly 10 years. And it has passed, that's what's important to remember, but it doesn't pass when I go back into the obsession and the food and the self-pity, and the isolation that I once lived in as a permanent state. What I've learned in this program is that by reaching out and sharing with others and hearing from others, just brings me closer to that sense of serenity that I can find in this program. And um, yeah, I'm trying really hard to find a connection to God again that I was slightly eclipsed for a while by this idea of like, if only I was this, dot, dot, dot. And yeah, I'm just grateful that each time I am reminded of the persistence of this disease. I also know that I have a program to work when I need to, and I have fellows to lean on and people to reach out to. And I have a food plan, and I have a meditation practice in the morning, and I have my writing that I do every day, and I just have tools that I can use persistently, as this disease can also be persistent. But yeah, the voice gets quieter the more that I lean into that, um, lean into that other way of doing life. Um, so yeah, I hope that made sense. I'm sorry, I'm not fully awake yet, but I'm just looking forward to hearing from you all. And yeah,